Okay. Morning, everyone. Welcome to September 2024 READ cohort. Uh, yeah, I'm Lynn Gasway. I don't really have much to say. I just say everybody continue to stay safe out there. And it's been a long, interesting fire season, especially if you're in the Northwest, Oregon, Washington. California's picked up a bit. Idaho, and the Rockies are joining the game wholeheartedly. So um, get out there if you can. Support people who are out on the line by checking in on them. Um, Fire season after fire season, it's wearing on you, and everybody can use support. So today is about um, a type of support on the fire, and I think Pete's going to talk about what the lineup is and do a much better job than me rambling on right now. So everybody, have a great day.
Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate that. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. I'm Pete Irvin, one of the cohort managers, as Lynn is. And today we've really got some good stuff going on. Got several presentations, and we're going to start out with a presentation about human resources, EEO, considerations for us as reads and reefs. And then we're going to have a brief overview description of the Lessons Learned Center. And then we're going to hear from one of our own, a reef, Mike Millay from Oregon, who was involved in a pretty unique situation that the Lesson Learned Center detailed in a recent rapid lesson sharing on the Battle Mountain Complex earlier this summer. So a jam-packed hour. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end. And to build just a little bit more on what Lynn said, I took a look at this morning's SIT report. We are still nationally at PL5. And there are 24,750 personnel assigned on at least 55 uncontained large fires that are in a full suppression strategy, 39 other large fires that are being managed under some other strategy. And that includes 26 complex incident management teams, 2 type 1 IMTs, and at least one of the NEMO teams. So, and the national SIT report doesn't drill down any more than that. I know there's multiple type 3 and type 4 fires going on. Northwest GAC is still at PL5. SoCal and the Great Basin are at PL4. And lots of fire going on. Some of you are probably doing as our first presenter is and joining us from a fire. And Ms. Neal, we sure thank you for taking and making time to be with us today. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So first off, I just want to introduce myself. I am Sherry Neal. I am my day job. I'm the branch chief for reasonable accommodations. And then my second job, if you will, I'm the human resource specialist. I'm the geographical area coordinator for Region 4, but I'm also the national coordinator for the Forest Service, and Susie is the national coordinator for the BLM. So I just want to give you to kind of a quick overview of what the functions, roles, and responsibilities are for the human resource specialist. And this is the person that you're going to be reaching out to. And it's kind of funny, when we first established this position, we figured anytime there was a fire, when there was going to be 300 or more people assigned to the incident, that's when it would require a human resource specialist. That was a long time ago. Now 300 people are usually ordered in about 5 minutes. So the role and responsibility of the human resource specialist is to, be proactive in preventing incident with human interaction problems, and then to be timely in resolving minor human interaction problems and issues that come to us. So a lot of the minor, for example, violations are inappropriate practices or activities that could lead to larger violations. And we work directly for the incident commander or the deputy IC, and we just inform them of anything that might be going on. We also are very tied in with the AA agency administrator, making sure that they're aware of what is going on at their incident. And because wherever we're at, I'm up here in Boise. This is the host unit. My home unit is in Ogden, Utah. So that's just kind of a brief overview of that. We also, when we're on an incident, we make sure that we have information posted, how to reach out to us in the IAP. We have information as to what is inappropriate behavior. We also, in the mornings, I did a morning briefing this morning and talked about, foreseeing a trend, anything that might be going on. And we also have an information board that is posted someplace in ICP, a couple of them. Usually one is by the food line, one is by our yurt where our office is. We also have information boards posted up in spike camps, because the spike camps themselves anymore are getting large enough that we have 300 people or more. So part of our information that we provide is that, like the incident that I'm on right now, we have people from all over the place. To include the National Guard, we have several spike camps where we've got the National Guard. Contractors, all issues or concerns that are brought to us that the employee is a contractor, we work very closely with the COR, the contracting officer, as to anything that might be going on. And that also includes any EEO issues. And I'm going to give you a few examples of those. And then, it might be, when we talk about contractors, it might be issues that we're having with the shower facility, somebody at the shower facilities making comments or things like that. Contract crews, somebody that is equipment operator, even, the food unit leader or the people that are working the food line. Sometimes we might have issues or concerns with them. We always bring that up again with the COR, making sure that they're aware of what is going on. So when and if you should have any kind of issues or problems with any of the individuals identified, whether it's a crew, a contractor, anything like that, if possible, bring it to the human resource specialist's attention. They will address it. And what we will do is some basic fact finding to see what's going on. We will talk with individuals. Depending on what's going on, we might have to get law enforcement involved. If there's allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, theft, or anything like that, that would require law enforcement. If not, then it's pretty confidential, any issues that are brought to us. And we only take the issues that we feel that might have some repercussions, especially if they are EEO related. We will take that to the incident commander. We will provide our information that we obtain through fact finding, present it to the IC, let them make the determination as to what they would like to do at that point, whether we're going to demob somebody, whether we're going to separate, crews, move them around. It's the IC that makes that final decision. Now, unfortunately, because, you know, a fire requires an HRSP of 300 people or more. HRSPs are not at every fire, unfortunately. And then when you get the large fires that we're starting to see, where there's, you know, 1,000 people, and I think one of the fires there in California have up to 4,000 people, you might have 4 or 5 HRSPs assigned to that incident, um, to help with the size of the incident. And like I mentioned, some of the spike camps might have 4, 5, 600 people assigned to a spike camp. So what we have learned historically, this time of the year, where we've had such a long fire season, people are starting to get tired. They're fatigued. People are homesick because they know that they've been missing a lot of things that are taking place at home. So they're not on their best game. People are getting sick because of the weather conditions and because of being fatigued. And what I like to say is a lot of times, even on the same crew and things like that, what used to be funny and things at the start of the season is no longer funny. So people are just plain getting sick and tired of each other. And so that's where we start to see a lot of issues take place, things that like I mentioned, maybe was acceptable at the beginning of the assignment with the crew, things that are no longer acceptable, and then they become issues. So the important thing is to know who to go. Can you hear me?
We lost you for a minute, but you're back now, Sherry.
Okay, sorry. To help to know who can assist with that, and that's going to be your human resource specialist. Now, your human resource isn't going to be the fix-all, but they will have all of the information that you need to be able to be referred to an EEO counselor if it's an EEO issue, to be referred to the anti-harassment hotline, to be referred to a contractor. We have contractors that come out and they have no idea who their COR is. So we will give them their information that they need to be able to find the proper resources. So we will be an avenue of resources. We will work with whatever is going on at the incident at that time, because we're not just going to say, oh, you're a contractor, we're not going to worry about it. We will resolve to the best of our abilities whatever happens to be going on. And every time that we give a message, we stress, especially this time of year, people's safety, people's wellness, not only, you know, making sure you're not getting the camp crud, but your mental fatigue, making sure that, you know, you're checking in at home, making sure that you're having some downtime to be able to, you know, reset physically and mentally. And at this time of the year, what we try to do on some incidents, if we are close enough to a larger town, city, is bring in emotional support animals, give people just that quick fix to unwind, relax, even if it's only for 2 or 3, 5 minutes. I'm going to turn my camera off. Okay, as you can see sitting next to me, this is Molly. Molly is a service animal, and she's also considered an emotional support animal, and she assists me out on fire. We used to belong to Great Basin Team 1. We rolled with we've had this, Molly's the second one. We've had an emotional support animal tied to the team for the last 15 years. And you'd be surprised, like this morning when we went to morning briefing, how many people just say, I just need some Molly moments. And, they'll have caller, love up on her and things like that and say, thank you. I needed that. I just, needed that laugh because, she's the type of animal that, everybody's my new best friend. That just gives them a time to maybe reset, kind of refocus on something other than the fire. They're willing to share with you pictures of their own animals and things like that. So that's kind of we're learning through the agency, the Forest Service, we're learning that is a good thing that we need to be able to provide. So we're seeing more and more teams. If they have an HRSP, like here, we would go to Boise and say, do you have any emotional support animals that we can bring up to the incident, specific time and dates? California, we've done it in California, some others, just so that people have that opportunity to, like I say, physically and mentally take some time to reset and reconnect with something other than the fire. And we strongly encourage people in our messages that we put in our IAP to be able to take time to reconnect at home, because it is so important to be able to have your mind in the game when you're out there on the line. These fires aren't getting any smaller. If anything, they're getting more complex and bigger. So we see a huge need for that, for individuals to be able to physically and mentally reset, and thus just the recent change from 2 days to 3 days. So this is what a HRSP does out on a fire assignment. Like I say, we're not the be all fix all, but we definitely can give you information and points of contact as who you can contact, to include the union. We have to be able to post who the union representative is for that forest as part of our information, and it's also posted in the IAP should you have to be referred to a union official. So again, we unfortunately don't have enough HRSPs to go around, especially this time of the year. But that doesn't mean that you can't reach out to, the IC, deputy IC, and say, hey, I've got some issues or something's going on. And they know who to contact. As the national coordinator, they know that they can reach out to me, and we can provide them with information. I'm usually pretty much available 24/7, whether I'm on an assignment or off of an assignment, to be able to provide information to anybody as to who your points of contacts might be. And so I think I'll pause right here and ask if there's any questions. And I can't see the chat, so I just want to let you know that I can't see the chat.
Okay, copy that. Sherry, this is Pete. I'm looking at the chat and I don't see any questions at the moment. Folks, if you have a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat or raise your hand. And as I say that, Sherry, I do have one entry in the chat that Julie, would you like to come off mute or would you like me to read it? Not hearing Julie, so Sherry, reading from the chat, her experience with EEO counselors in the Forest Service is that they do not advise you, they file a complaint for you. Who do you refer employees to if they just want information, counseling, conflict mediation, etc.? Conflict mediation program advisors don't handle EEO issues, and employee relations represents management, not employees now. And that's the end of the comment, Sherry.
Okay, so labor relations also can assist They represent more the employee. And EEO counselors, I am not an EEO counselor, so I can't speak to what their roles and responsibilities are. But if you, as an individual, any individual, feels like you've been discriminated against based on any of the protected activities, then yes, it's your responsibility as the employee to reach out to a counselor. And if you choose not to file a complaint, that's your choice. But they're there to assist should anybody feel like they're being discriminated against.
Thanks. And here's one from me personally, Sherry. Resource advisors, including READs, reefs, archaeologists, technical specialists, sometimes we're in a pretty unique role. A lot of people can say that on fires, but the resource advisor sort of has one foot in the fire world and one foot in the AA world, right? As the representative for the AA with the incident management team. And so sometimes that can be a little bit of a lonely role, and sometimes it can be a little bit adversarial, We're concerned about the impacts of suppression activities in that high-paced environment. And so if as a READ, I've come out, I've joined a group of other READs, I don't know them, I'm feeling a little bit isolated, and maybe my role, I'm really butting heads with the div soup or a particular heavy equipment operation. If that's where I'm at on day 5 or day 7 of my assignment, what would your suggestion for me be?
Come find me and Molly. No, the human resource specialist can assist you with that. Absolutely. Because we've had situations, even within teams, if team members are button heads, logistics is button heads with supply, or, whoever on a team, or even when we're like in this situation here on the Middle Fork complex, where we've got multiple teams, if there's any type of conflict, bring it to us. We will address it. We can address it. And, sometimes we have to keep things confidential based on whatever's going on. But yeah, sitting down and discussing it, part of our role is to be a facilitator. And so sometimes that's what it just needs, is to have a facilitated conversation so that everybody understands what the issues and problems are, why it's, your role is important to compare to somebody else's role. Having that common goal and understanding in a facilitated conversation is very beneficial. And I think that's what happens, is we forget what the common role is, our common goal, and need to be able to sit down and talk that out. I don't know if that helped answer your question or not.
It does indeed. Thanks very much.
Okay.
And at the same time, Sherry, I'm looking in the chat, and I'm not seeing any other questions appear.
Okay.
So this is Lynn. I do have a question. I would like to ask if there is a sexual assault or just unwanted advances, what should someone do? What should a resource advisor do if that happens?
So a sexual assault, definitely we bring in law enforcement, because that it's unlawful. If there is advances that are unwelcomed and things like that, we talk about that. We also have messages in our morning briefings and the IAP, but also bring it to the attention of the HRSP. Let us do some basic fact finding. So if something's going on, and I'm just going to use Molly as an example. Molly says that I feel like I'm being sexually harassed by this employee over here. Then we say, okay, we'll sit down, we'll talk with you. main thing we want to make sure has happened is that Molly is safe. Molly feels safe in the environment, and we might have to pull Molly off of that crew or wherever, you know, the allegations are being made. And then we'll talk to the person that the allegations are made by or to, get their side of the story, and then just try to figure out what's going on from there. And we've had people that come back and say, yes, I've said that, and yes, I did this, that, or the other, you know, but that's not my intent. Well, it doesn't matter what the intent is. If it's inappropriate, it's inappropriate. And then it's dealt with, and depending on the severity of the issues, it's dealt with, and a person can be sent home.
Thanks, Sherry. Another question in the chat. If could you speak a little bit about your interactions with the union, specifically NFFE? You know, how is your engagement? How is your relationship with them in your human resource role?
We engage with each other pretty well. If it's a union issue that needs to be dealt with union, I'm just going to pass it over to the union official, make sure it's a warm passover, and then I'm out of it. I'm not there as a union representative. Then I don't need to know anymore. Now, if there's something that we have to work together, that we need to get some basic information, then we can probably get the basic information and provide it to the union official. But more often than not, we just pass it over to the union because we are not union representatives.
Excellent, thank you. And Sherry, are you able to stay with us for the remainder of the meeting? I know you're on assignment.
Unfortunately, probably not, because at this same time, there was a mandated training that we are providing. So I stepped away from that to join this. But we are going to be taking a break. And when we take that break, because that was a 4-hour training, when we take a break, I can definitely jump back on.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I asked that because I know you're juggling 3 or 4 different things at the moment. And I wanted to make sure that folks, if you have questions for Sherry, now is your chance. Sherry, you're good if I type your email into the chat?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned at the beginning, I believe the BLM lead for HRSP, or maybe I didn't get that straight.
Yes,
but
Susie. I can send you her name too.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm yeah, last thing or the most recent thing in the chat is just a comment about labor relations representing management and employee relations representing all employees. So maybe I tried to summarize what you said, Sherry, wrong. I had put in that in the previous one where we talked about EEO counselors and employee relations representing management. I said also reach out to labor relations, but I may have mistyped that.
Okay, and I probably could have misspoke that.
Well, Sherry, not seeing any hands raised and not seeing any comments in the chat. I'll just, you know, what you said earlier about what was an innocent comment between crew members or between teammates early in the season, it may not be an innocent comment anymore. And yeah, my take on that is, you know, that little joke that's funny on day 1, it is not funny on day 12, right?
Exactly.
Of this assignment. So that really resonated with me, what you were saying, and just the fact that we all need to look out for each other and realize that where I'm coming from is a different place than where you're coming from. We've all got that common goal of working on this incident, but we're coming at it with much different backgrounds and much different life experiences. So.
Absolutely. And then what's important is, a lot of times we will start to have, because we want to be cohesive. So we'll start to have conversations, sometimes some joking around and things like that. And so, everybody thinks it's funny, but then it always seems like we step the game up a little bit more. The jokes become, a little bit more sexual nature. Maybe they come a little bit more raunchy or whatever you want to call it. And then we definitely cross that line, and then people are like, nah, that's not funny anymore. That's not acceptable. But, one or two are laughing. We need to make sure when we cross that line, we stop, or before we cross that line, we stop. Watch your teammates, your coworkers and stuff like that. If they're shaking their head even in the lightest little bit or walking away, those are some key signs that this isn't appropriate anymore. We don't find this funny anymore. And it's also important, if you find something to be acceptable, pull me off to the side and say, Sherry, you made that comment. I really didn't appreciate it. You said that joke. I really didn't appreciate it anymore. Maybe we just need to tone it down or just stop, because we've gotten to the point where it's all inappropriate now. It's no longer funny. It's no longer a joke. So, those are some of the key things that when we start to have our interactive process with, the harasser, the alleged harasser and the victim, know when to stop, or more importantly, don't even go down that road, because sometimes it's hard to stop once you go down that road.
Great, thank you. One last question before we move on to our second topic that's coming from the chat. Does the 24-hour sexual harassment reporting requirement get enforced on fires? As we've noted, fires are an unusual situation with a lot of stress.
Yes, it does. In fact, so far this year, unfortunately, we have had 4 actual assaults and multiple sexual harassments, and it does have to be reported within that first 24 hours. So once it's brought to any management official's attention, supervisor's attention, it has to be reported within that 24 hours.
Sherry, thank you. And thank you for your presentation today. Thank you for sharing Molly with us. And I did put your email, your USDA.gov email into the chat. It's also in the meeting announcement, so you may be hearing from some of us.
Okay, that's great.
Awesome. And some thanks rolling into the chat for being with us today.
All right. You all be careful. Be safe out there.
Thank you very much, Sherry. You as well.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Folks, at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Eric Apland, who is the field operations specialist with the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center. And Eric, hope you're still with us and can come on camera. There we go.
I am.
Perfect.
Thank you. Hello. Hey, good to see you. And yeah, thanks so much for having me and giving us the time to talk a little bit about this. I definitely won't go on too long at all, but just as a little background about who the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center is and what we do. Lessons Learned Center came out of the 1994 fire season, specifically South Canyon. There was a push after that tragedy to do kind of a comprehensive look at the entire wildland fire, interagency wildland fire system in the United States and determine what needed to change. And there were I can't remember now how many recommendations there were. It was a multi-year process. One of the things that they said was that there needed to be a centralized center to kind of maintain and hold these incident reports and to disseminate lessons to the field from one centralized place. That really didn't happen before. And to additionally to be able to have access to all those things and then to be able to do analysis on them in-house so that we can share things out to the field, trends, things that we see, sort of being in this position that we see everything that's coming in. Jointly funded by the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Interior. So right now there's 4 of us in the Lessons Learned Center. 2 of us, including myself, are Forest Service, and 2 are DOI employees. One's National Park Service. Excuse me, one's National Park Service, one's BLM. So it's intentionally interagency. We don't answer to a particular agency. We sort of are disseminated in that way. As far as the stuff that we have, I'm going to share my screen and show our website, and I'll drop the website in the chat as well. There we go. So this is our website, lessons.wildfire.gov. We get sent things there's kind of a misconception that we write everything that's here. That's not true at all. The stuff that we have here is submitted from the field. There are sort of higher level complexity things like learning reviews, facilitated learning analysis, lesson learned reviews. Like, it kind of depends on the agency what these things are called, but those things typically result from a serious injury or fatality, and those are submitted to us from organized teams that are put together to look into a particular incident. Those come to us and we publish them. The vast majority of what we get are these rapid lesson sharing documents that come to us, generally speaking, directly from the field, from the people who were involved. Sometimes safety officers or regional risk management officers or other people can kind of help organize those. Sometimes it literally just comes directly from, an engine captain, or it can literally be anybody that just sends those directly to us. And I'll show you on the website where you can find that stuff. Just one more point about that. The purpose for all these things is learning and is not discipline. There was a period of time, I would say the worst of which was about 20 years ago, which was when I started in fire, where the culture of sort of the safety culture or the reporting culture was catastrophically bad. There was no trust within the agencies, particularly within the Forest Service. That's what I was familiar with. And the thought was, if something happens to you on a fire, the agency is not going to protect you. The agency is potentially going to punish you, those kinds of things. I feel that we've come a long way since then. And this push towards looking at learning, looking at how to improve things for the future, rather than looking at blaming, has really, I think, made huge inroads in several of the agencies and has really changed sort of the tenor of what we're doing now and how we learn from incidents. So with that, this is a quick look at the website. I don't want to go into everything, but you can definitely dive in here and click around if you haven't been on the website before. But first of all, just up at the top here, you have our list of various products that we produce. So the incident reports come to us. We typically don't write them, but we do write other things. So we have a summary of the previous year that comes out usually sometime in the first few months of each year. We have a blog that either we write things or people can submit topics to us, or essays to us, and we publish those. We have a few other things. I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you want to submit a lesson to us, one of these rapid lesson sharing, then you just click on this and it will take you immediately to this page where you can submit the lesson, and we have a few tips here on how that process works. But basically we get it as a block of text with some photos. We have a wonderful writer editor who makes it all look great, so it doesn't have to come formatted really at all. And we work with you to get it to a point where it's ready to publish and it goes out. The intent is that that is as real time as possible. So, you know, it can be that we get things that are really close to a final draft. We do a read through to make sure there's no spelling errors, you know, that kind of thing. And it goes out the next day or in a couple of days. You know, that ideally that's how it would work. Like it would be a really quick turnaround on things. Without, you know, agency oversight. This doesn't have to go through a committee. This doesn't have to go through NWCG or, you know, fire director of the Forest Service or anything like that. Like this is stuff that comes from the field. And as long as it, you know, passes some pretty basic sort of, you know, I wouldn't even say we have rules, but just as long as it makes sense, as long as we think it's like, yes, this is valuable to the field, it goes out without further review. The only other thing I want to show is this. This is the front-facing view of our database of incidents. So I know that we've got Mike who's going to talk about his experience on the Battle Mountain complex. So if we, for instance, didn't know the name of that fire, which is pretty common that you kind of forget the name or maybe never knew it, we would just look here and say you knew like, oh, there was an entrapment this year. I bet I don't know exactly what it was or even where it was. Then you could just search for entrapment, search for only this year, and oh, and it didn't work. Come on. Try again. Okay. And there you go. We have 4 entrapment reports that we've received this year. The most recent one was Battle Mountain Complex. So if you did know more information, you could put in the state that it happened. You could put in some kind of relevant search term that might bring it up easier. If you knew the fire name, then certainly you would put that here. And that's how you access our database of all incident reviews. I think it's something like 4,000 different incidents that have happened on wildfires going back to 1909. That's what we have currently. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop talking so that I don't take any more of your time. But again, I really appreciate that you invited me here.
Eric, thank you. I'm a pretty big Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center fan. I always look forward to each edition of 2 more chains that come out, and more recently, I like your podcast episodes. Some very insightful topics that come through there. Please do put your contact and the website into the chat for us, Eric. We'd appreciate that, and appreciate you coming on in short notice. And you know, it was through the Lesson Learned Center that I first heard of the Battle Mountain Complex and heard about it because and paid attention to it because it was titled Battle Mountain Complex Narrow Escape, a READ Scouts an Escape Route. And I'm like, hey, got to find out more about this. And I think that's probably plenty of introduction for our third topic today. Mike Millay, if you'd like to come on camera, turn it over to you, and appreciate you being with us, man.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, all. Thanks for having me. So for this stint, I just got asked to kind of just tell a story. I don't have much of a PowerPoint. I did throw a few pictures together that I'll share here briefly, but yeah, it's just kind of from my lens of what happened out there that day. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, I'll pull up this PowerPoint and from the beginning.
Yeah,
so
Mike, this is Pete. It's looking fine, man.
All right. I can't see myself, but as long as you can see it and hear me. So I got assigned to the Battle Mountain Complex Fire, Eastern Oregon. It was actually within the district. Here's just a picture. It was kind of blown up that day. And on the back of the truck there, you see a unique tool. It's like an electric motorcycle. This is the first time I used this as a read, and it was an amazing tool. If anybody has the competency to ride, kind of like a dirt bike, mountain bikes, it's just a pull and go throttle. It's all electric. And I was able to GPS and map out any skid road, dozer line throughout that fire. So that's one tool I had with me. But I guess I'll start off who I am. I'm Mike Millay. My current role, I'm assistant field manager for Deschutes field office. I kind of manage the recreation program. So I've been red carded 21 years now, and I started doing reef stuff. I think it's 16 or 17. And this adorable human being, that's my boy Parker. He's my buddy most of the time. But yeah, so on the 27th July, really peak fire season, super hot temperatures, everything's dried out really good. And I go out that day, typical day, and it's just kind of it's an unusual day. Like things were popping early. You know, I got trees torching 10 a.m., you know, kind of jumping all over the place. It was a ODF fire, so it's pretty direct line, dozer line approaching this fire. And I think this next photo, again, I just took photos to share to my kid. I saw some fire coming at me, figured these trees were going to torch, jump the road, and spot over, and that's exactly what happened. So that's just a picture of that. But shortly after this torching, and I've seen this heavy fire activity, we get radio comms that go off, and it was like a panic mode that says, you know, Division Zulu, this is, you know, the crew name, and we're prepping a deployment site. And you can hear chainsaws running, and it's just chaos. And it's just something in 21 years I've never heard over the radio at all, let alone in the division I'm working at. So I definitely cued in, and I just really tried to listen for what's going to happen next. You know, it's just such a scary thing. You want to help, you want to stay off the radio, but it was a unique situation. So kind of started with that. It sounds like the radio comm didn't work. I can play it one last time just to see, but it was just I just happened to record a little bit.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't get it again, Mike.
Oh, no worries. That's a boring slide. Anyways, I get the comms. It's getting real. During this time, it was too smoky that the helicopters were actually grounded. And what I thought was really cool about this is as soon as this radio comm went over that a crew's potentially prepping a deployment site, 3 birds were up in the air, and they're trying to cool off water in the lat long they give that they provided. So I also put the lat long. I was using field maps, which is a common tool that we use. I threw the lat long, write it down right away. Put it in the GPS and found out, man, that's not too far away from here. And here's what's kind of funky about this is this completely outside of my lane to go and kind of head that direction? Yeah, probably. But I decided to do my reef work over there. I was still checking with division early on, and I knew I had clear escape routes out in all directions, so I was familiar with the area. So as I shoot over there in this e-moto bike, I get up to a point where I'm starting to hear the helicopters. And I'm in the black, I'm in a safe zone, but I could see where these trees are kind of torching up and where the activity was. So I kind of hop off this skid road. This bike's pretty capable kind of going off road. It was the terrain that you kind of see there with the helicopter in the air. And I look out and I see right where they're dropping the bucket of water on. I knew that wasn't very far at all. So I'm kind of looking at my map, thinking, gosh, that is not, I'm about 500 feet above them. And there's a ridge that shoots down off to the right side that was kind of black, like you see in the bottom of that picture. So it took several minutes. I was trying to get some cell comms to see if I could text the division, and I was unsuccessful there. So I'm still waiting for the comms to clear. And in the meantime, the crew had gone up out of the tree line, did a little small burnout, and was kind of in this cheatgrass juniper mix area. So they're in a relatively safe area. Later, I can see where they cut all the juniper trees around them and kind of cleared a little path. But as soon as they were safe enough, comms were cleared, I hop on the radio, contact division immediately, and this is where I'm like, oh no, here's a read calling right after kind of an incident and emergency, sort of out of my lane. But I let him know that I was like, Division Zulu, I'm 500 feet above this crew. I got a clear path in the black down a ridge that goes to a dozer line and out to their trucks. where they were staged. Because I think in the heat of the moment with all these folks that I think that when the fire was jumping or spotting over, that their way out to their trucks was their way, their only way, and they got kind of caught with some torching and some spot fires on the other side of them. So I don't think they really identified. So I asked the division, if I can engage down there, and he said absolutely, go. So I came in kind of off this ridge that was off to the side up here, rode this e-bike down the ridge, and this is the kind of the first encounter I had with the crew. Super excited. Everybody's wondering where the hell I came from, where I was, and what the hell this thing was. But it all turned out well. So we basically kind of gaggled up, got him some, hydrated up. I grabbed some of the heavier gear on my back as well to make it a little easier for the pack out. And we got these folks out to the line. So I just grabbed this picture. It's kind of special because they're all stoked. They got to the dozer line. They're feeling good, and had basically a clean shot back to the trucks. So that was my experience encounter. I'm gonna try to stop sharing here. And what I don't know, some of the things that I kind of bring some of these things up as some of the lesson learned that I got out of it was like really keen into communications, what's going on, right? So don't walk over the radio traffic during any kind of emergency. I was ready with a pen in hand I knew they were going to get the lat long, and it's just helpful to know. You just never know. So I was really paying attention to that. I think understanding the topography, the maps, the amount of escape routes that I knew I had out of there in every direction, I felt super comfortable just even being engaged in that area of the fire. And so this is where I thought it was funny. It's just working with chain of command, maybe when you're outside of your lane a little bit. That's about like the last thing I want to do is get on the radio right after an incident with division. But I had some good intel to give and provide, and I knew the route was going to be safe to get them out. So I engaged and got permission, and we got the crew out. So that's kind of my story. Sorry if I went a little bit longer than needed, but yeah, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Mike, thank you. I'll start out by just saying thanks. The first question is whether that's your personal e-bike or an agency bike.
That's an agency bike. That's the joys of being in charge of the recreation program. End of the year funds come in. We have hundreds of miles of single track trail here in Prineville District, the Deschutes Field office. So we were justified to pick one of those up, and they are an excellent tool to use. Our agency qualifications for those are just a motorcycle endorsement, which I've always had, and what else? JHA. And it looks like I see Ciron. It's a Talaria is the brand that we have. I'm looking at comments now. I was looking at the Ciron. It looked like, I think it's a part of Ciron, but it was like the longest battery pack extended life that they had at the time when we ordered. So we went with the Talaria Stingray X or something like that. Great tool though.
Nice. Mike, how involved were you in the RLS document that was developed? I believe it was submitted by a safety and wellness coordinator for Oregon Department of Forestry.
Yeah, that's a good question. Immediately after, I assume there was going to be some kind of conversation after this for exactly the purpose that Eric just discussed, the fact that we can learn from, if there's anything to learn from it, it's just going to be key. So immediately after that, once I got the crew to the division who was waiting at their trucks, I gave them my information, personal information, said, I'll be back at camp, if we're going to touch base. We just had some sit downs with safety, kind of gave them the story. They took some notes, and I sent them some pictures. I didn't share them. It's not my part to do anything in investigation. I don't know whether that crew should have been there or should. It's none of my business to even say. The crew, in their mind, saw that they were in danger, and they reacted. They got out of the heavy timber, did a burnout, got in a relatively safe space. So with to kind of answer your question, it's just really working with safety after. We just had some face-to-face taking notes, and I shared some pictures that I took around the area just in case that was helpful for them.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
And either I missed it or maybe you didn't say it, but your home unit, Deschutes field office, is part of the Prineville district of BLM. I'm a Forest Service guy, so I struggle a little.
That's correct. I'm with the Prineville district. They have 2 field offices, Central Oregon field office and Deschutes.
Awesome. Mike, if you're looking at the chat, there's a comment that just came in.
Yeah, I see that. So a lot of folks don't have this similar access. Basically, everything in this scenario, if I wasn't on that bike, I could have accessed with the truck, and then it would have been walking down. I think I'm like hesitant to almost tell the story sometimes because it sounds like I'm really out of my lane. But everything that I did, I was very comfortable doing. I was very competent for riding the bikes. I knew the route of the dozer lines, the capabilities. I knew however many roads to the east and to the west and north and south. I had directions to go, all 4 directions. But in this case, I really think a lot of it could have been accessed vehicle or by foot, or it's not worth pursuing. I want to be super clear on that. It's not worth having an incident within an incident as well. So just kind of to that question, I think a lot of it could have been vehicle to foot, or if you didn't have that capability, probably shouldn't have been in the area. I just had a unique situation where I had a quick mobility to kind of scout it out, and it turned out to be a little helpful.
Mike, that was a complex fire at that point, run by a complex incident management team, pretty good size acreage. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think it was just shy of 200,000 acres, 2 fires at that time combined, probably around that day. I was originally assigned to, Boneyard. It turned into Battle Mountain Complex. Type 1 team, 2 different big base camp areas and a spike. So there was a lot of complexity. One thing I might note on that actually is when this incident kicked off, Division Zulu, for example, took the lead on, obviously it's his division on this incident. All the other resources of Zulu then were absorbed by Alpha. This is a complex incident in the peak of suppression and trying to catch that head of the fire. There was a lot of resources that Alpha took on. So this is just kind of popping up my head right now. Something to think about. If there is an instance like that, then another division might take on a huge burden for the amount of absorbing all those other resources. So maybe have that in mind as well. It could be anything like this, or another safety where a division has to kind of let go of the resources. Maybe just have that in mind. That could be sort of a lesson learned. Kind of thinking out loud that another division had to take on another 150 resources, folks of all kinds, with activity jumping over the line like crazy, so kind of going back to one of those questions, maybe if you don't have those resources available, don't engage.
Yeah, got to look out for yourself. You said it earlier, you don't want to become part of a second IWI kind of situation by jumping in.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I see that Lynn put a link to the rapid lesson sharing document from the Lesson Learned Center in the chat. Folks, if you haven't read it, I strongly encourage you to read it. As Mike said, what he's telling us today is his piece of that, and the RLS document is sort of a compilation of information pulled together from the crew involved, from the division overhead, and from Mike and others. So reading the chat, there's some good comments going on in there, and I think it ties back to Mike's story. The situation he was in, he was comfortable in what he was doing. sure feels like to me, Mike, it was being on your home unit and having some pre-existing familiarity with that country was something that really helped your confidence level.
Sure, sure. And to be honest, that was the first time I'd seen that area other than the 2 days I'd worked in it. So again, as a resource advisor, just really understanding where you could be within your division, not just your little piece or your two little dozer lines maybe you're going after. Just try to take time in the morning and look at the broad scope of what that suppression, maybe that suppression map might look like, and other ways, additional ways out, because there later that day there was another radio comm cleared that they were having issues of finding a way out because the fire was spotting so many areas. So always just situational awareness is the key thing. I think some folks shared that in the chat, which is always, it never hurts. It never hurts to take a little bit of time a little extra time in the morning and really look at your whole division or your whole area and look for different ways out.
Hey, Mike, I reached out to you cold a couple weeks ago, asked you to be a part of this today, and I really appreciate you jumping in. I appreciate Jess Reisenberg being the lead on how I got your name, and I appreciate you sharing your story. A very recent, very real life, pretty unique, but we all get into some unique situations that we don't anticipate when we roll out that morning. So thank you so much. And folks, I'm cognizant of our time. Mike, Eric, if you can hang on for a minute or two, that'd be awesome. But if not, we are at the end of our time. I'll remind folks that our next call will be Wednesday, October 16th, third Wednesday of the month, always at 8:30 Pacific time. And you can always access resources. Mike, if you're willing to share those slides, I'll put them up in the READ cohort Google library.
Sure.
And this presentation will be up on our READ cohort YouTube channel after some editing. So don't look for it later today. It may take a week or two for it to go up, but we'll get it up there. Thank you, everybody. I'll go back to what Sherry Neal said earlier. Look out for each other. Long season. It's a long way from being over. Let's take care of each other and get through it together. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
And folks, if anybody is hanging on with a question for either Eric or Mike,